Everyone saw her, but no one really saw her. Her name was Amara. She worked as a cleaner in a big office building. Every morning, before the sun came up, she arrived quietly. She wore the same old gray sweater, a faded scarf, and shoes that had been repaired many times. She always smiled, soft and gentle, but she never spoke much. She cleaned desks, emptied trash bins, mopped the shiny floors. She never disturbed anyone, never asked questions. She moved like a shadow, quiet, calm, invisible. Most employees didn't know her name, but Mr. Harris, the boss, did. Mr. Harris was a serious man, always in suits, always on time, always busy. He ran the company with discipline and expected the best. He had seen Amara in the hallways for years, but never paid much attention, until one rainy Tuesday evening. He was staying late for a meeting and walked out of his office at 9:30 p.m. The building was empty and quiet, but in the corner, near the washroom, he saw something unexpected. Amara was on her knees, scrubbing a stain on the floor. Her hands were red from the strong cleaning liquid, but what caught his eye wasn't the scrubbing. It was the bandage slipping off her hand. There was blood. Not much, but enough. He stepped closer. "Excuse me," he said. "You're hurt?" She looked up, surprised. "Oh, it's nothing, sir." "You're bleeding," he said again gently. She quickly wrapped the scarf tighter around her hand. "Just a small cut. I'm okay." Mr. Harris stood there for a second. Something about her face, her tired eyes, her calm voice, made him pause. "You should rest," he said. She smiled politely. Still 3 more floors left to clean. Then she stood up and walked away. That night, Mr. Harris couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her. The old scarf, the quiet pain, the way she smiled even when bleeding. He suddenly realized he didn't know anything about her. Who was she? Why did she look so tired? Why didn't she ever complain? He felt a strange heaviness in his chest. The next day, he tried to notice her more. He watched her work from his office window, always careful, always quiet, sometimes coughing, but still working. On Friday evening, he stayed late again. This time, he saw her leaving the building at 10:00 p.m. It was raining hard. She had no umbrella. She pulled her scarf over her head and walked down the road alone, holding her small bag close to her chest. Mr. Harris looked at his car keys, then back at her disappearing figure in the rain. Something inside him said, "Follow her." He got into his car and slowly drove behind her, without turning on the headlights. She walked for nearly 30 minutes, passing through narrow streets and old houses. Finally, she turned into a tiny lane at the edge of the city. There stood a small broken house, roof half covered with plastic, windows cracked, light coming from candles inside. Amara entered quietly. Mr. Harris parked his car far away and stepped out. He walked closer, careful not to be seen. He peeked through a small space in the curtain. What he saw broke him. Inside the dim room, Amara placed her back on the floor. She took off her wet scarf and hung it on a broken hook. Then she turned to a small bed in the corner. A child was lying there. Then, pale, breathing slowly, Amara bent down and touched the child's forehead. "I'm here, baby," she whispered. "Mama's home." She lit a candle and opened a box. Inside were medicines, carefully counted pills, and a small bottle of soup. She kissed the child's cheek and whispered again, "I'll work harder. I promise. You'll be better soon." Mr. Harris stepped back from the window. His chest hurt. This woman, this silent worker, was fighting a war he never saw. He looked at the house once more. No light, no warmth, just love and pain. He walked back to his car with tears in his eyes. The rain had stopped, but Mr. Harris's heart still felt heavy. He sat inside his car, staring at the small broken house where Amara lived. It looked like it could fall apart at any moment. The windows were cracked. The roof had plastic sheets instead of tiles. The only light came from candles. Inside, he had seen her, the woman who cleaned his office floors, kneeling beside a sick child with soft hands and quiet strength. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just whispered love and hope. And suddenly, Mr. Harris didn't see a cleaner anymore. He saw a mother fighting to keep her world alive. He didn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about her small hands, her kind smile, and the way she kissed her child's forehead. The next morning at the office, everything looked the same. Employees laughed near the coffee machine. Papers shuffled. Phones rang. And Amara was back at work, wearing the same gray sweater, smiling, cleaning, quiet as always. But now, Mr. Harris saw her differently. He noticed how she bent slightly while mopping, like her back hurt. He saw the pain in her eyes, even when she smiled. He saw how carefully she folded the used paper towels, so nothing was wasted. She moved with the grace of someone used to being ignored. Later that day, he called the HR manager to his office. "Tell me about Amara," he said. The manager looked surprised. "Amara? The cleaner?" "Yes." "Well, she's been here 6 years. Never took a sick day, never late, quiet lady. Has she ever asked for help?" "No, sir. She even turned down a small raise last year." Mr. Harris frowned. "Why?" She said others needed it more. He leaned back in his chair, shocked. The HR manager left, and Mr. Harris sat alone. He opened her staff file. No emergency contacts, no family listed. Just a note at the bottom. "Husband, deceased." He closed the file gently. "She's a widow," he whispered. "And now, she's alone with a sick child." That evening, something strange happened. As Amara was about to leave, it started raining again. Mr. Harris stepped out of his office with an umbrella. "Wait," he said. "Let me give you a ride." She looked shocked. "Sir? No, please. I'm okay. You'll get wet." "I don't mind," she said politely. "I walk every day." He didn't push, just nodded. She bowed her head and walked into the rain again. But this time, he followed her more carefully. He parked his car farther away. He wore a black coat and hood. He watched her enter the same broken house. He saw her light the same candles. He saw her gently wipe the child's face with a warm cloth. This time, he stayed longer. He watched her open a box. Inside were 5 small coins, a torn envelope, and a hospital slip. He couldn't read it clearly, but the words "past due" and "treatment needed" were clear. Then something happened that broke his heart even more. The child woke up. His voice was weak. "Mama, did you eat?" Amara smiled and touched his hair. "Yes, baby, I ate at work." But she hadn't. Mr. Harris had seen her sit in the hallway earlier, quietly drinking water with no lunch. The child coughed and said, "I'm sorry you work so much." Amara held his hand. "Don't say sorry. Just get better, okay?" And then she began to sing. A soft, slow lullaby. Her voice cracked in the middle, but she kept singing. Tears ran down Mr. Harris' face as he turned away. He walked back to his car. The night felt colder now. He sat behind the wheel and whispered to himself, "She doesn't need pity. She needs help." He looked at the office building far away, where she cleaned floors every night, and then at the small home, where she gave every part of herself to a sick child. In that moment, he made a promise. "Tomorrow, I'll change everything." At the office, Amara's life looked simple. She cleaned. She smiled. She kept her head low and her steps quiet. She never spoke unless spoken to. But inside her was a storm no one could see. Only Mr. Harris knew the truth now. He had followed her home. He had seen the sick child. He had watched her cook in candlelight, whisper soft lullabies, and lie about eating, just to comfort her son. That night had changed him. And from that day, he couldn't look at her the same way again. The next morning, Amara arrived at 6 o'clock a.m. as always. She carried her small gray bag, her scarf still damp from last night's rain. She started cleaning the glass doors near the reception. Her hands moved gently, like they were dancing. She hummed a quiet tune, almost like a song of hope. Mr. Harris stood at his office window, watching her. She smiled at the receptionist and picked up a crumpled paper from the floor. Then, without stopping, she moved to the next task. She was a ghost of kindness in a place full of noise. But now, he saw what she was hiding. Pain, fear, exhaustion, and most of all, desperation. Later that day, Mr. Harris called a private meeting with his HR team. "I want to know everything we've missed," he said, "especially about Amara." The HR head looked surprised. "Sir, she's just a cleaner." Mr. Harris frowned. "No, she's not just anything. Start with her hours." They opened the records. What they found shocked them. Amara worked 3 shifts. One at the office, one at a night sewing center, and one in the early morning, helping at a vegetable stall in the market. "No one works this hard unless they're desperate," Mr. Harris said quietly. "Should we call her in?" the HR manager asked. He shook his head. "Not yet. Let me handle this." That evening, Amara was cleaning the meeting room when her hand slipped. A glass fell and shattered on the floor. She dropped to her knees quickly, picking up the pieces. Blood dripped from her palm. Mr. Harris happened to walk by. He rushed in. "You're bleeding again." She looked up quickly, hiding her hand. "It's just a scratch, sir. You need a bandage." "I'll clean it first," she said, already standing. "Amara, you don't have to keep hiding your pain." Her smile froze. For a second, her eyes showed shock. Then, quickly, she lowered her head. "I'm fine, sir. Thank you." And she walked out of the room, holding her bleeding hand inside her sleeve. Mr. Harris sighed. How do you help someone who's too strong to ask for help? The next day, he made some calls. He called the hospital Amara had visited before. He used her son's name, which he had seen on the old file. Zayan. The nurse on the phone paused when she heard it. "Yes, Zayan. Very sweet boy. Very sick too. We haven't seen him in a while." "Why not?" Mr. Harris asked. The nurse's voice dropped. "His mother, she couldn't pay. She said she'd come back soon." Mr. Harris closed his eyes. "How much is the bill?" The nurse told him. It wasn't a big amount for a man like him, but for Amara, it must have felt like a mountain. He made a decision. "I'll pay everything." Anonymously. That evening, Amara came home to a surprise. There was a bag of groceries at her door, fresh fruits, warm bread, a new blanket. Inside, there was a note. "You give so much, it's your turn to receive." She looked around, confused. She opened the door and went inside. "Zayan," she whispered, "we have food tonight. Real food." The boy smiled weakly. "Did someone help us?" I don't know," she said, tears forming in her eyes. Back at the office, Mr. Harris sat in the dark. He had more plans. He would change her job title, give her extra pay without making it obvious, create a new fund for staff members in silent pain, like her. But first, he wanted to see the change in her eyes. He wanted to know if hope could return to her face. It was Saturday morning. Most employees were enjoying their weekend, resting at home or spending time with their families. But Mr. Harris was not resting. He drove straight to the city hospital. He wore no suit today, just a plain shirt and jeans. He didn't want to look like a rich boss. He wanted to be just a human being today. He walked to the reception and asked softly, "I'm here to check on a child, Zayan Malik." The nurse looked at him and nodded. "He's not here right now, but he's one of ours. His case is difficult." Mr. Harris lowered his voice. "Can you tell me more?" The nurse hesitated. "Are you family?" "No," he said, "but I'm someone who cares." She looked into his eyes and saw something sincere. She nodded slowly and pulled out a file. "Zayan has a rare lung condition," she explained. "He needs medicine every week. Sometimes he needs machines to help him breathe." Mr. Harris flipped through the file. It showed missed appointments, unpaid bills, skipped checkups. "She tries," the nurse said softly. "His mother, Amara, she fights so hard, but life keeps hitting her. She never asks for help," Mr. Harris whispered. The nurse nodded. "She's proud. She once told me, if I cry in front of my son, who will protect him?" Mr. Harris felt a tightness in his throat. He stepped outside and sat on the hospital bench. He stared at the sky. It was cloudy again. He thought about his own childhood. He remembered how his mother raised him alone after his father left. They had no food some nights, no heat in winter. She worked 2 jobs. Just like Amara, he had almost forgotten that pain. But now, it all came rushing back. "I was Zayn once," he whispered. He took a deep breath. He knew now, this wasn't just about helping someone. This was personal. That night, Amara came home to another surprise. On her doorstep was a small box. Inside it were new inhalers, Zayn's exact medicine, a toy ambulance, a small note. "Every fighter needs a helper. You are not alone anymore." She looked around, shocked. Tears filled her eyes. Zayn opened the box and gasped. "Mama, look, my favorite toy." Amara hugged him tightly. Her hands trembled. "Someone is watching over us," she whispered. Back at the office, things were changing too. People had started noticing Mr. Harris was acting differently. He smiled more. He asked about employees' families. He walked the halls instead of hiding in his office. He even asked one of the workers, "Do you ever feel unseen here?" The man blinked, surprised. "Sometimes, yes." Mr. Harris nodded. "We'll fix that." Then one day, Amara received a letter at work. It wasn't from HR. It was personally signed by Mr. Harris. "Dear Amara, you are being promoted to staff supervisor for cleanliness and support. Your working hours will be adjusted to suit your personal needs. Your pay will be increased. No questions asked." She stared at the paper for a long time. She thought it was a mistake. When she knocked on Mr. Harris's door to return the letter, he smiled gently. "It's yours," he said. "You've earned far more than this." She didn't know what to say. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He paused. "Because you remind me of someone," he said. "Someone who gave everything just to keep their child alive." That night, Amara didn't cry. For the first time in years, she felt safe. She felt like the darkness around her was finally lifting. In the corner of the small house, Zayn slept peacefully, the toy ambulance in his arms, the medicine on the shelf, and a mother beside him, smiling softly in the candlelight. The sun rose gently over the city. Birds sang outside, but inside Amara's small home, something felt wrong. Zayn was coughing again, louder this time. His little chest moved up and down too fast. His lips looked pale. Amara rushed to his side. "Zayn, baby, breathe slowly. I'm here. Mama's here." But his breathing didn't slow down. His eyes looked tired. He tried to smile, but he couldn't. "Hurts, Mama," he whispered. Amara's heart broke. She picked him up, wrapped him in a shawl, and ran outside. Her slippers splashed in the morning water as she rushed to the street. She didn't wait for a bus. She didn't care about the rain. She just ran. At the hospital, nurses moved quickly. One of them recognized her. "This is Zayn," she told the doctor. "Chronic case. Call the pediatric ICU." Amara stood frozen as they took her son away. She had never felt this kind of fear before. Not when her husband died. Not when she lost her home. Not when she went hungry. This fear was different. This fear was helplessness. Meanwhile, Mr. Harris was walking into the office. He had just entered the building when his phone rang. It was the nurse from the hospital. "Sir, it's Zayn. He's in critical condition." He didn't even ask for details. He turned around and rushed back to his car. At the hospital, Amara sat in the hallway alone. She stared at the floor, her hands shaking. She felt small, useless. Then she heard footsteps. She looked up and saw Mr. Harris. Her eyes widened. "Sir, what are you?" "I came as soon as I heard," he said gently. "You're not alone." That's when her tears finally came. She covered her face and cried like a child. Mr. Harris sat beside her in silence. He didn't say any big words. He didn't offer promises. He just sat. And sometimes, that's enough. After some time, the doctor came out. "He's stable now," the doctor said. "But he needs to stay in the hospital for a few weeks. We'll need special medicine, breathing support, and 24-hour care." Amara looked down. How much will it cost? The doctor hesitated. A lot. She nodded slowly, her heart heavy. Mr. Harris stepped forward. I'll cover it. Amara turned to him quickly. No, I can't let you. He raised his hand. You've carried the world on your shoulders for years. Let someone carry you now. Over the next few days, Zayn stayed in the hospital. Machines beeped softly around him. Nurses smiled gently. And Amara stayed beside him the whole time. But every night, when Zayn slept, Mr. Harris would come sit in the hallway. They would talk in whispers about life, pain, and dreams long forgotten. One night, Amara said quietly, "There's something I've never told anyone." Mr. Harris looked at her gently. "What is it?" She paused, then spoke. "Before Zayn was born, I was a school teacher. I used to teach art. I had dreams. But after my husband died, I had to stop everything." Mr. Harris listened carefully. "I started cleaning floors, sewing clothes, carrying boxes. I stopped being me." She wiped a tear. "But somehow, I kept smiling. For him." Mr. Harris didn't speak. He just nodded with respect in his eyes. He had never met someone so quietly powerful. A week later, something unexpected happened. A reporter from a small local newspaper came to the hospital. She had heard about a company helping a poor worker and her sick son. She wanted to write a story. Mr. Harris wasn't sure. He didn't want attention. But Amara said something surprising. "Let her write it." He looked at her, confused. She smiled softly. "If my story helps someone else feel seen, it's worth it." That article went viral in just 2 days. The silent worker who hid a storm behind her smile, from dust to hope, a boy's fight and his mother's strength. People across the city began donating to Zayn's care. Messages of support poured in. And in the middle of it all, Amara stood quietly, with Zayn's hand in hers. It had been 3 weeks since Zayn was admitted to the hospital. The machines that once beeped every second were now silent. Zayn could finally breathe without support, and his smile had returned, small but real. He played with his toy ambulance and told his mother stories about flying doctors and talking pillows. Amara laughed softly. She had not laughed like this in years. The storm that once lived in her heart was now beginning to calm. One morning, Mr. Harris walked into the hospital with a small gift bag. Inside was a notebook and a set of colored pencils. "These are for you," he said, handing them to Amara. She looked confused. "For me?" He smiled. "You used to teach art, remember?" She nodded slowly. "You should start drawing again." Her eyes filled with emotion. "I haven't held a pencil in years." "Then it's time to begin." That night, after Zayn fell asleep, Amara opened the notebook. She drew a small tree with big roots. Then a boy flying with balloons. Then, a woman holding a cracked umbrella in the rain, but still standing strong. It was her story, without a single word. The next morning, something else changed. Mr. Harris came to her with a serious expression. "Amara, I have something to ask you." She nodded, nervous. "I want you to come back to the company, but not as a cleaner." She blinked. "Then as what?" "I'm starting a new department, employee support and wellness. We need someone who understands struggle, someone people can talk to, someone like you." Amara froze. "But I have no degree in psychology or business." He smiled. "You have something better, experience, heart, strength." Tears formed in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Just say yes," he said warmly. Back at the company, things were already changing. There was now a notice board near the entrance. "We see you. We support you. Free medical checkups, mental health talks, child care support, emergency fund for staff in crisis." And Amara's photo was on the wall, not in a uniform, but in a beautiful scarf, smiling gently. The caption said, "The heart behind the change." Zayn returned home after a month in the hospital. He was still weak, but he was alive and hopeful. Their small home looked brighter now. There was food in the kitchen, medicine in the cabinet, and joy in the air. One evening, he looked at his mother and said, "Mama, can I be a doctor when I grow up?" She smiled and hugged him. "You can be anything, my love." Meanwhile, something unexpected happened with Mr. Harris. One evening, he visited his old neighborhood. He stood outside a small broken house, his childhood home. A woman opened the door. It was his mother. "David," she whispered, shocked. He nodded slowly. "I never thanked you," he said softly, "for everything you did for me." She pulled him into a hug, and he cried in her arms, something he hadn't done in 20 years. Amara's strength had reminded him of his own mother's. And now, he understood both. A few days later, Amara walked into her new office. It was small but bright. There were plants by the window, a painting on the wall, one she drew, and a chair for visitors. Her first visitor was the young receptionist. She walked in slowly, eyes red. "I heard what you've been through," the girl said, "and I think I need someone to talk to." Amara smiled and held out her hand. "I'm here. Sit down." And just like that, a new chapter truly began. That night, Amara sat by Zayan's bed, notebook in her lap. She wrote, "One small act of kindness can change everything. Never underestimate her quiet heart. It might carry the strength of 1,000 storms." 2 years had passed. Zayan was now 8 years old. He was healthy, active, and full of questions about the world. He loved 2 things, drawing superheroes and reading books about doctors. Sometimes he would wear a toy stethoscope around his neck and pretend to check his mother's heartbeat. "Perfect," he would say proudly. "You have the strongest heart, Mama." Amara would smile, her eyes full of love. She no longer wore a gleaming uniform. Now, she wore light-colored scarves, carried a notebook, and walked into the office with quiet confidence. She was now Director of Employee Care, a position that didn't even exist before her. One morning, a new worker joined the company, a young woman named Rita. She was quiet, avoided eye contact, and kept to herself. She worked in the packing department, but her hands often shook. One day, Amara visited the warehouse and noticed her. Later, she asked the manager, "Can I speak with that girl?" The manager nodded. Amara sat with Rita in the break room. "Are you okay?" The girl hesitated, then burst into tears. "My baby is sick. My husband left. I don't know how to survive." Amara reached out and held her hand. "I know how that feels," she said softly. Then she smiled. "You're not alone." That evening, Amara spoke to Mr. Harris. "We need a small emergency fund for cases like Rita." He agreed instantly. A few days later, the company launched the Hope Fund, a support program for struggling workers. Dozens of families were helped within weeks. Amara had become more than just an employee. She was a lifeline. Meanwhile, Mr. Harris was going through his own quiet change. He started visiting public schools on weekends. He gave talks about dreams, kindness, and hard work. At one school, he told Zayan's story, without names, to a group of students. "Sometimes, the strongest people are the quietest," he told them. "They carry storms inside them and still smile for others." One boy raised his hand and asked, "Did you help him?" Mr. Harris paused and smiled. "No," he said, "he helped me." One afternoon, Zayan brought home a drawing from school. It showed a tall building with a red sign, "Zayan's Free Hospital." Underneath it was a child smiling and holding a teddy bear. Amara looked at it with tears in her eyes. "That's your dream?" she asked. Zayan nodded. "I want poor kids to get medicine without waiting, like I did." Amara hugged him tightly. "Then we'll get there, step by step." Months later, a large event was held at the company. Employees and their families gathered in the hall. It was a celebration of unity, support, and hope. Mr. Harris went up on stage and looked around the crowd. He took a deep breath. "I want to tell you all a story," he began, "about a woman who cleaned floors by day and fought battles by night." He told the full story of Amara, how she struggled, how she kept smiling, and how she changed his heart forever. When he finished, the room was silent. Then, loud applause filled the air. Amara stood in the corner, tears rolling down her cheeks. Zayn clapped the loudest. At the end of the event, Mr. Harris handed her a small gift box. Inside was a silver necklace, shaped like a candle. He said, "Because you light the way, even in darkness." That night, Amara sat at her desk, looking at the necklace. She opened her notebook and wrote, "I once thought silence was weakness. Now I know. Silence can be strength. A mother's love, a child's hope, and a stranger's kindness changed everything." She closed the book, smiled, and turned off the light. Outside, Zayn was asleep, dreaming of white coats and happy children. In another part of the city, Mr. Harris looked out his window. He whispered, "Thank you, Amara, for saving 2 lives, not just one."